Hi everyone, back to the More YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. And it's a rant that I don't really like to do. Let me explain that to you. You're probably wondering, what, Chris, you love a rant? I do love a rant. But this one is one I don't particularly like doing because I don't like going for other content creators. I've got a lot of respect for content creators. They get a hard time on all the social media platforms off a lot of people for talking absolute nonsense. Now, generally, a lot of them are pretty good. You know, they research their points quite thoroughly, especially Newcastle United ones, with the exception of maybe one or two that just make stuff up. But generally, most of the Newcastle United content creators and other football content creators do a lot of research on the information that they talk about, and they're probably much better than the mainstream media, really. But sometimes people just come out and talk absolute bollocks. You know, we've called out people before on this channel in the Media Muppet section, and you know that's well deserved because you know those three winners talk absolute garbage half the time just for clickbait, and that's what we'll give them, unfortunately, because you've got to call out the bullshit. And there is somebody else who's getting called out for utter bullshit today, and it is unfortunately somebody who's actually done very well in terms of content creators, and that is Mark Goldbridge, the David Brent of Manchester United fans. You know Mark, I can't do this anymore, United, that kind of guy, you know, who stands up in his pyjamas and tosses a wobbler every time Manchester United fuck up a winning position, which happens quite a lot these days. And speaking to somebody who's of an age where we were battling Manchester United for the title in the 90s, I love it. I fucking hate Manchester United. But anyway, back to what I'm talking about Mark Goldbridge. I will give Mark his credit because he's done a phenomenal job in terms of growing his channel and getting to where he is. You know, he's wrote a book about football and all sorts of stuff, you know, and he does work for other football outlets on YouTube and even for our favourite radio station, Talk Sport. Maybe that's what's happened to you, Mark. You spent too long plugged into the Talk Sport machine and now you're talking utter bollocks, which is what I'm going to call you out for on this particular one. So if you didn't see already, midweek Manchester United completely threw it away against Chelsea. They lost 4-3. That's right, Mark. They lost 4-3. Mark Goldbridge came on his channel and said that they won 3-2. I'm not entirely sure whether he's just playing a David Brent character or he's actually started to believe the shite that he's hoying into his script there, because you didn't win 3-2, you lost 4-3. Now, most football content creators can admit when they lose. They might toss a wobble and say their team was shitter than they actually were, and then when they calm down a little bit, 24 hours, 40 hours later, you're a little bit more magnanimous and, you know, calmer about the situation. But in the moment, you're allowed to toss a wobble and say they were shit. But you don't say you won 3-2 when you didn't. You lost 4-3. That is just pretty much football 101, whether you're on YouTube or you're on BBC or Sky or whatever. You know, you can't say a team won when they didn't. That is a fact. But that's not really what prompted me to do this video. So I did see this on X earlier. Me and Mark were having a bit of a crack about it. And fair play as well to the people who called out this bullshit. And X had to put a community note on there as well, which I'm sure Mark will probably throw up on the screen in a minute now with the wonder of YouTube. But Mark Goldbridge then, you know, decided to post after the Manchester United game that Manchester United have had a list of obviously unfortunate events, a series of unfortunate events just without the Jim Carrey this season. And the first one was the most injuries in Premier League history. Now, press pause right there. This is what the community note was really put in for. Manchester United have not had the most injuries in Premier League history. They are currently 8th in the injury table. And who's top? You guessed it. Newcastle United, where the wind blows strong and everyone gets fucking injured these days. So that's sort of bollocks, Mark. Do your research before you put such ridiculous bullshit out into the social media world, especially the toilet that is X, because you just know plenty of people are going to jump on that and pull you for being full of shit, really, which is pretty much shit is what's on that platform most of the time. But that kind of bollocks does not belong out there, because you're talking nonsense for starters. You might have went on Talk Sport and said the same thing. You might have went on these other football outlets and said the same thing, and you're talking nonsense because you haven't had the most injuries this season. He then went on to say they've only had one central defensive midfielder. Well, you know, that's something that you have to look at in the club, Mark, because Casemiro's put on about 9 stone. It looks like he's been locked away in fucking Slim Chickens or Toby Carver or something, having double helpings of potato. And that's why, you know, your central defensive midfielder is shit. You should have went out and bought one. You bought an Amrabat and he's fucking terrible. So again, blame your scouts for that one. Then he said the 2 best players have gone AWOL. Well, unfortunately, that's your manager's job to get the best out of those players. So you can't use that as a plausible excuse either. There is no sympathy for Manchester United imploding this season. And to be fair, they weren't very good last season either. Yes, they beat us in the Carabao Cup final using their experience in the finish the Champions League positions, but they weren't very good. Manchester United are on a hiding to nothing. They've been shite really since Alex Ferguson left and haven't been able to get back to the top of the table. That's thanks to the cash injection of Manchester City and the arrival of the likes of Mancini beforehand, and then Pep Guardiola, then Jurgen Klopp coming to Liverpool. Yes, he's leaving at the end of the season. Hurrah, hurrah, goodbye, turkey teeth. But then it depends on who Liverpool bring in. Manchester United still might not be able to close the gap on that particular manager or those particular football teams. So I've got no sympathy for Manchester United whatsoever, neither has most football fans. But this is my point on this. Now, these content creators who have a real successful run, some of them can keep their humility about them. Some of them change their content. They adapt, they go into different areas and cover different subjects. Like the True Geordie with his fighting and his stuff outside of football as well, which is really good content these days. But then you get the likes of Goldbridge, who maybe is just believing his hype a little bit too much and just talking absolute fucking waffle because he thinks that all of his followers will blindly swallow it by the spoonful and then regurgitate that shit all over social media, and then everyone will start thinking Manchester United have got these horrible injury woes compared to other teams who are way worse than they are. So you need to do a bit better on that one, Mark. Research yourself a bit better. Maybe walk away from TalkSport. That's another point as well. There's so many good content creators out there who are well researched and don't talk utter bullshit in their PJ bottoms in that man shed at the bottom of the garden. Why aren't they getting a chance at mainstream media? Why is this David Brent Wazzett getting a chance over everybody else? Look around mainstream media. There's loads of people you can engage with on there, rather than just dealing with these people who just obviously don't talk sense at all and just throw out hyperbole without even thinking about it. Mind you, when you look at the Soccer Saturday panel likes of Merson or all these fuckwits who talk bollocks, then it doesn't surprise me. He probably fits your mould quite well. But I just wanted to jump on and shout out that I think it's brilliant that he's been called out for the bullshit, and it's brilliant that the likes of X have pulled it right. And yeah, just be a bit better than that, Mark. Come on, you have got some good content coming out. To be fair, I'd much rather watch him throwing a wobbler in his shed than seeing these silly OnlyFans bitches putting butt plugs up their arse. Don't get me started on that fuckwit. At least the lad's talking about football. But that's my thoughts about that. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. If this is the kind of thing you like, smash like and subscribe. Come and join us in the Evermore community. We've got loads of room for you. We're a much littler channel than Goldbridge, but we're more well researched. Have a cracking day, everybody, and we'll see you later. Cheers.